What are the practical guidelines to avoiding the evil eye or hasad without falling into excess and without being lax and having no discretion?
So the evil eye is a reality. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that al-ainu haqq, that the evil eye is a reality. And we also know from the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ that the evil eye, or al-ain, is most frequently the result of intense envy or intense malice, right? Hasad, that is intense, right? Or hiqd, that is intense. So the strongest, the ulama mentioned that there's three things that, above all, that protect against it. The first is tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That we know that nothing benefits and nothing harms except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We affirm spiritual causality as we affirm outward causality. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a relationship between observed causes and effects, but there's also a relationship between intangible or unseen causes and effects out of a divine wisdom. So one has tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first thing the ulama mentioned. The second of the three things that the ulama mentioned with respect to protecting oneself from the evil eye is to be discreet with blessings. Right? To be discreet with blessings. Because whoever has a blessing, the Prophet ﷺ said, would be envied. Right? But discretion with blessings isn't that you hide the blessing. Right? So if you buy a car, you don't have to park it, two parking lots away, just so that no one knows that you got a car. But discretion with blessings entails that you don't flaunt your blessings. That you don't flaunt your blessings. Number two, that you err on the side of having restraint. Of having restraint. So you got your first job, all your friends are young, you don't have to go and buy and finance the most expensive car you can afford. Because then you're going to get envied. Right? And besides the evil eye, you're going to hurt other people's feelings. Because, everyone else is driving, a mid-range car, and suddenly, you're driving the latest model Tesla or whatever. Like, have a certain degree of restraint where, in the normal case. So, have restraint with blessings. Don't flaunt them. Be generally inclined towards a little less rather than stretching beyond. There's a spiritual aspect to that restraint with blessings, which is that never ascribe the blessing to yourself. Right? فَمَنْ وَجْدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. Whoever finds the good, let them praise Allah. Right? It's distinct from, but related to the idea of tawakkul. Right? You trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with respect to any potential harm, but also you see the blessing as being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say that's part of, should you get that Tesla or not? Should you buy the new flashy thing? If you do it genuinely, seeing your wealth as being from Allah, and you do it with a sense of gratitude to Allah, genuinely, then go ahead. Right? But if there's anything of self-satisfaction or self-affirmation or showing off in front of others, then don't. Right? So it requires a certain degree of self-awareness. That's part of discretion with blessings as well. So there's trust in Allah, being discreet with blessings. And the third is to always recite the the verses of the surahs of protection, the things that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to recite. The mu'awwidhat, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, and Surah Al-Nas. Right? In the morning, whether upon waking or ideally after the Fajr prayer, before going to sleep, after each of the prayers. Right? These serve as a protection. And they mention explicitly, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and from the evil of the envious person when they are envious. Likewise, Ayat al-Kursi is for protection. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to recite the closing verses, the closing 2 verses, or the closing 3 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. So these serve as a protection. But practically, a lot of times people aren't careful, like they overstate. Right? So for example, there's nothing wrong. Some people get over afraid. So you met somebody, doesn't mean that if you're in New York City, you don't post a picture of yourself being in New York City. But if you're all the time flaunting it, right? So Allah has blessed you. You travel to nice places, but you're always taking pictures of all the wonderful moments. And we all know when you travel, there's also the immigration and the lineups and this and that. But all you post are all the amazing moments. Had amazing coffee, had this, saw this, beautiful sight, this, that, the other. If you overdo it, then that's flaunting blessings, and that's when one is being indiscreet. So to have a certain degree of discretion about it is good, particularly because there's a lot of people who are hurt, right? A lot of people who are hurt, who are alone, etc. The ulama would mention in a different context that one of the reasons a lot of the Salaf, a lot of the early Muslims disliked eating in the marketplace was that it would hurt the feelings of the poor. Right? And they considered it from lack of nasiha, that one is eating well and there are those who are not. And of course, it doesn't make it that it's not a religious ruling, but there's the idea of discretion, right? The idea of discretion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us balance.